Welcome to another great SoCal Sound session. I'm Julie Slater, midday host. I am here with Jaime Wyatt.
Hello.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for performing for us.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I love that you're called the queen, or someone's called you the queen. The queer queen, queer queen of outlaw country, maybe.
Oh yeah, right. I have been called that.
And they, like, it's always written up. I mean, looking at your whole story, and I don't know if everyone knows, I just wanted to go over it. So, did you write a song at age 4?
Well, yeah, but didn't everybody?
No, not everybody did.
I mean, okay, fair. But I feel like a lot of kids do write songs in their little kids. But yeah, I did.
And then you, tell me if any of this is wrong. So then by 12, you were like playing out in coffee houses.
I was like making my own shows. I was like, went into like some coffee shop. I was like, hey, so can I do like a thing here? You know, it'll bring in lots of customers.
That's hilarious. So an entrepreneur from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you had a record deal or something at 14?
No, 17. 17. Okay. Yeah, but I mean,
that's very young. Yeah,
looking back, I'm like, oh, gosh, I don't know if I would have allowed myself to do that.
I know it's a lot for someone so young. I mean, there's a lot of young artists now, but you do worry
Oh yeah,
about
young
them.
people are way more equipped than I was when I was young. I don't recognize young people. They're like they're way
it's a different
responsible.
World. Yeah.
This next generation.
And I know you've been very open about you got like. Was it your time in LA that kind of sent you into sort of a dark place?
Oh, I definitely blame LA.
Yeah, I would blame LA.
I like to blame the place where I'm at.
Not yourself.
I'm like, listen, it was all LA's fault. But I did do some damage in this city, I guess.
Some damage, and I know you did
partying.
Some time in Los Angeles jail.
Yeah.
That's why you're an official outlaw.
Officially. Yeah.
Only one quick question about, like, it's the stuff I read said that you went to jail because you were robbing a heroin dealer. Like, how does that, does a heroin dealer go down to the police station? I was like, hey, I was doing a solid deal.
Yeah, they made a report and they pressed charges, yes.
But how did they not get in trouble?
This person was adopted by Mick Jagger's attorney. And they were, and that's all I'll say about that. Yeah. But, you know, I learned a lot about how the system works when I was young like that. Because it's not that I should have gotten away with robbing someone. You shouldn't rob anyone. I guess that's what the law says. Because I was like, hey, I robbed a drug dealer. And they're like, that's still illegal. And so we learned. But that, I'm surprised they would want to use so many resources to prosecute someone.
Right.
Stealing drugs, money, and things associated with drug dealers.
Do you think that time, like, how did that time impact, like, I know you ended up having a drug problem, like, did that, sometimes people get caught for something that, like, kind of turns them around. Did that help you, or was it like, way later that you kind of cleaned your life up? And
you know what, it was really helpful to, like, remove me from one environment. I will say that jail's not the environment to rehabilitate people, because that's not what I learned. Is that they're just supposed to keep you alive to go to court, but that it's not really a place for rehabilitation. That's not their job, and that's not what they intend to do. Maybe when you get sentenced, they'll talk about it. But I got lucky because I have some sort of privilege being a white woman, and looking back on it, again, I wasn't too far wrong. It helped me, but I also see the harm in it. You know what I mean? And in therapy, I've talked a lot about that over the years. I don't need to talk about, like, my pride or my dignity being hurt by being strip searched 1,000 times, but it's certainly not. Especially, how many people are in jail innocent? I was not innocent, but I think about other people in the situation, and that was maybe what hardened me a little bit to the world, because seeing how that system worked made me sad. But yes, did it get me off heroin? Yes. Yeah.
So it was a somewhat of a positive turn.
It was, yeah, you know, it was. Yes.
Gave you a lot of material.
Gave me a lot of material to work with, yeah.
Do you find that it's hard to write songs about happy things?
No.
Like, no.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, happy things are good to write about. I think that is a craft in its own.
Right.
And that's why I studied people like Lamont Dozier, who wrote for Motown for so many years and wrote all those hits, was that they are, like, they're making love songs that are moving. So I did kind of have to study that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Well, and it's hard. Do you feel like it's hard? I write a little bit just for hobby, but sometimes it's hard to write something happy that I guess doesn't sound maybe cheesy, or I guess you just got to write from the heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, I mean, I could always, when I'm really sad too, I could be a little bit extra with my lyrics, and it might not be as cool either. But, yeah, you're right, and that I think writing songs, you do, if you want to be still cool, you have to kind of like be careful. I like to be cheeky in songs.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to be like, inject a little satire, even if it is a love song.
And now, so your new album is Feel Good. So you have 2 albums before this. What would you say, like, how different you as a person have you been for each album? And then what was, like, the big difference for just, I guess, how this album came about? And, like, was it different for you? Were you in a different mental place, or?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I would hope so. I'm growing as a person. That my thing was, like, I wanted to make sure I had something significant to talk about, because the last couple of records, that's what moves people, is when you have to make some sort of discovery between each record, or maybe you're not as into growing, but I am, and that's the story I have to tell. Most of my records are autobiographical, and so I'm writing my own story by living it, right? We all are, but when I approach, like, what I want to say in the world, it's, you know, I felt like I'd invested in myself, and like I talk about therapy or whatever, and I started getting into this adult children of alcoholics journey, right? Healing the inner child. And I was discovering a lot about myself in that process, and also, you know, coming out of the closet in 2020 publicly. I had been out to friends and family, but you know, that coming out will take years, and I still come out to people every day, because they're still going to assume that I'm straight. That's just the way the world works, right? We made up this whole system so that no one was allowed to be gay, but now we're trying to reverse it, right? And so I've just tried to, like, really learn about what happened to me as a child, and reckon that story, reassure myself, and work through those emotions that, you know, maybe I honestly feel like, because, you know, society and gender is sort of like a made-up thing, and the whole, it's a lot of conditioning that I went through. And so in this process, what I've been doing is trying to find the authentic self. Like, before, society told me don't act like that. As long as I'm not hurting someone, it doesn't make sense to me, because I just think that naturally society wants to homogenize people and make them, like, easy to work with and be in the workforce. Individualism and stuff, it's not as encouraged. So as an artist, I feel like it's my job to document my process, and that has been my process for Feel Good. It was like, how do I strip away all this, like, implied guilt, implied shame that was put on me that wasn't mine, right? Or how about stuff that I put on myself and said, like, you know, I'm going to take responsibility for people who are not responsible in this world. And I think a lot of women do that. You know, we hold a lot of emotional space for people. And for me, I discovered that I was fatigued from doing that, and that in the process of holding a lot of compassion for others, I wasn't holding it for myself. And I'd always taught to put myself last. And when it comes to recovering from a hopeless state of drug addiction, or when it comes to discovering my authentic self, and how my gender expression feels and how I want to present in the world, like that stuff is super important. I can't remember where I was going with this, but that it all went into feel good. And because with all that hard work, like I started to feel good. I started to feel good. And
then did you have like emotions that came up? It seems like
yeah.
maybe you feel like you're not allowed to feel good sometimes.
That's where that guilt thing, I think, comes into place. You know, I think, again, I'm going to talk about society, but I really feel like wherever you came from, whatever religion you came from, in America, like we're a Protestant nation, we're taught to like work hard, be modest, don't take too much or whatever. So yeah, I think that people now, you're either in like, the trend is to be just like, oh, I can't look at anything in the world. I'm just going to bury my head in the sand. And I'm saying like you can feel good by still knowing what's going on, and that you can have co-occurring emotions.
Yeah.
But that I don't need to feel guilty for feeling good. And I definitely think that's the case for a lot of people.
Well, it's cool that you're like encouraging people.
I'm
like,
just,
it's
yeah,
okay
I am.
to feel good, even in the tough times that we've gone through and are in, you know?
Yeah.
Because you can definitely get in a bad place about it. And it kind of brings us to a world worth keeping. Like, tell me about what went through your mind, like writing that song.
When I was writing World Worth Keeping, it actually came out of like a relationship that I was in. And this person was like increasingly negative. And I was sort of pleading with them, and I, you know, take a look around you, there's a world worth keeping. And I didn't, so that's the only lyric that I kept repeating when we were jamming the song in the studio, and I had to kind of figure out what that meant, because I knew, I felt strongly about the phrase, that it was moving enough and general enough to, it felt kind of like a battle cry, but it also feels really hopeful, you know, and I need to be brought down to earth sometimes and like have somebody I know and trust look me in the eyes and be like, hey, we're right here, right now. So be here now. So I know that's where that lyric came from. And then when I was, I've always felt really strongly about environmentalism and protecting the planet and nature conservancy and whatnot. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and that is kind of instilled. You're just surrounded by woods, so it's like taught in schools, you know. And I felt like I had to incorporate that line into a song for the planet, but also for the collective.
Yeah.
Because the lyrics are that, you know, for the earth and for nature, and how climate change is driving up all these storms, and how, like, you know, Mother Nature is damaged and crying out in a way. That's what it feels like to me. But there's also some things about society in there, and talking about sort of hearts and minds currently. So that's what I was doing. I was kind of just, I'm a person in the world, and I read and I see what's going on, and I just take it in and I process it with my own emotions. And I think people need to hear that, because they either are feeling the same or they don't know how to feel right now about things.
Yeah. Coming off of the pandemic and everything, like everybody changed.
Everybody changed. Everything changed.
Yeah.
We were left with like a lot of depression and confusion and anxiety and things like that, I think, after a pandemic. So I know I was. And so in my journey, I was just kind of like, how do I get rid of this baggage? And how can I feel lighter? Like working through stuff in therapy and trying to like also do like positive self-talk all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Coach myself through a lot of situations where like, because I've got to be brave a lot. Like to me, it's not necessarily like, I like writing and I identify as a writer. That's a more like introverted thing.
Right, but then you got to go play shows.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to be a person out in the world, right? And so it's a little bit contrary to me. I had to learn how to do that.
Talking about writing, one question I was going to ask you, just going over your whole timeline, has anyone talked to you about writing a life, like your life story, or?
Yeah,
it's pretty incredible.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I have written some things. Like I was working on a screenplay, but I don't know how to do that. I didn't go to school. Life is my university.
Yeah,
the world is,
yeah, sure.
And I learn from people. So I do listen when people are talking. Luckily, so
maybe one day we'll see a screenplay.
So maybe.
Yeah. I think you played the Grand Ole Opry last week. Had you ever played there before?
No, that was my Opry debut.
Was that amazing?
Amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely, super validating. You know, like really an honor. Yeah, that's a legendary place. That's a legendary stage. So.
And now you're about to head out on, I think you call it your first like official headlining tour. How do you feel about that?
That's exciting because, you know, we had it all lined up in 2020 and then we couldn't tour.
Yeah.
So this one is really exciting and maybe even more exciting than the last. It's because we actually get to do this one. And it's like we start off at January 17th at the Troubadour. And
which
then
is also another iconic spot.
Yeah, so that's crazy. Then we play the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco. I've lived in LA and San Francisco throughout my life, and that was like, to play either of those venues is a dream. I've seen lots of great bands at both those venues, and there's tons of those venues on the tour. Like we're playing New Orleans at the House of Blues, we're playing Bluebird Theater in Denver. Lots of great shows. And on the West Coast, we're out with my friend, Radie Arman, who's a great singer-songwriter.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the luck on the tour. Thank you so much for coming by the station.
Yes, we had so much fun.
Jaime Wyatt, everybody. The new album, Feel Good. And thanks for playing songs and really, I know it takes a lot you got to reveal so much of yourself in each album. So thanks for sharing all your life with us.
Thanks.
It's really cool.
No, I'm glad it's well received. Thank you so much for listening and featuring me on the show.
Sure thing.